Hello, music lovers and book connectors. Welcome back to either the Book Connection or the Ms. Music channel here on YouTube. Visitors, should you happen upon the channel, feel free to join us. We'd love to have you here. Hello once again, music lovers and book connectors. Welcome back to either channel, the Book Connection or Ms. Music here on YouTube. I am here this time with part 2 of the book, the autobiography of Billy Joel. Now, when last we left off, we just talked about how he had done a stint in the hospital because he had a mental break. But he had written a few songs at this time, and he told one of his partners, look, right now, basically, he was saying something along the lines of, either I'm going to be a success at this, or I have to find something else to do. He had written, like I said, a few songs, and nobody seemed to want them until he decided that this was all he had for music. Either you like it and want to buy it or whatever, or I'm done. So that's when I believe the song Piano Man was bought. That was one of his first songs that was released. But for me, I believe I remember My Life before I remember the Piano Man. But I believe as a whole, Piano Man is the one that if you don't know anything else by him, that's the one we all know. Well, I know more than that. But anyway, I love more than that. Anyway, in this part, it just talks about him basically going through all that you have to go through, challenges, obstacles, to get yourself established. So he went through, different variations of his background, his band, basically. He, had to try and test people out. Some worked, some didn't. But most of the ones that worked, whenever he started out, back in the 70s, he still plays with today. Now, as far as his personal life, well, now that was a bit sticky. I told you in the first part that he ended up falling in love with his friend's wife. Now, okay, it's easy to say, well, I didn't know that they were married. That's what he could have said, according to him. He didn't. But I can't understand if that was the case. I don't know, maybe she thought she could just fool around with Billy on the side. I don't know. Because other than that, she really has no excuse for not saying why she didn't tell him that she was already married. Not only was she married, but she was pregnant. All right, so long story short, that relationship has ended on a rather bitter note at that. It was so bad that at one time during the divorce procedures, her own brother sided with Billy. Now, I don't know how messed up you have to be, what was her name? Elizabeth, for your own brother to go against you when you know that this man that he is siding with you against is very rich, and he could come out, or if he wasn't very rich, he was well established. And you knew that if he came out against you, it would be rough. But unfortunately for Billy, he didn't, the wife didn't get everything she wanted, but what she did get, I'm talking about in terms of money now, because I can't remember what the ultimate or the final settlement was. But now, in as much as Elizabeth's brother Frank siding with Billy, turns out his hand wasn't completely clean either. He just needed Billy so that he could go about trying to basically keep all of the publishing rights to or for himself. So that backfired as well. Now he goes on, he's depressed again. I felt bad for him. And I don't know what the deal was with his mother because, well, I know he loved her. That wasn't really the issue. And sometimes love makes us upset with loved ones because if you don't love them, they can't hurt you, right? Or make you angry or anything. But at some point, his mother just kind of sounds like she became attached. I mean, whatever he was doing, she appreciated it. She loved it. That wasn't the issue. But she just kind of felt like he should be around more than he was. But he wasn't because he was constantly touring and still earning a name for himself. And I think she kind of just wanted him to have pity for her. And I don't know, I think that they bumped heads about that for a little while. But he just kept on his path, and I guess his mother got over it, and they went on. Well, then he meets little Miss Christie Brinkley, Miss Uptown Girl herself. I don't know what it is with this man, because when he met Christie Brinkley, he was dating Elle Macpherson at the time. She was also a model. If I didn't say that a while ago, Christie Brinkley, for those of you who don't know, was or is a supermodel. I don't know how they refer to that now, but she was a supermodel. And I think she is so pretty. Always has been. To me, Christie. Elle is probably pretty too, but I think I've seen Christie more than I have seen Elle. So that's no slight to Elle. But he was dating Elle Macpherson. I think she was 19 and he was like 31, 32, somewhere along in there. So when he met Christie, he was playing and they met backstage. But that's all it was a meeting. At the time, nobody thought or did anything about it. But eventually, he's still trying to play Mr. Macho. This one on this arm tonight and this one on the other arm next week, or however he planned it. So he eventually contacted Christie, who was going through a lot. She had been dating this man. I can't remember his name, but I know he was wealthy. And they dated, but he ended up, unfortunately, getting killed in a plane crash. So she wasn't really necessarily looking to get back out there and start dating again, but she was kind of like on the threshold, I would say. So eventually, when Billy reached out to her, she did take the phone call, and they talked. Then they began slowly, I have to be here at this point. Are you going to be available? You think we can meet for dinner or lunch or whatever? So slowly they did start to date each other, but it was nothing. It was still under wraps. I don't know if either one of them said, look, we got to keep this hush-hush. I don't know if that was said, but they did start to see each other. So Billy says that she was living with him for a brief period, but then she moved away. I think they had decided, it just wasn't working out or whatever. So she packed all of her belongings up and she moved out. And a month or so later, he asks Christy to come to his apartment after dinner. You want to swing by? I'll show you where I live or whatever. And she finally went on in there. But time they stepped off the elevator, guess who was there? Elle. All of her luggage and everything was back. And so they had kind of like an awkward laugh about it. And she put her things in there. I think Elle couldn't, wherever she was going, it was something about the place wasn't ready and nobody told her that it wasn't ready or whatever. So Billy was nice enough to let her stay there. I don't even think she was there a whole month. But in that time, both women knew where they stood with Billy. So Elle wasn't a threat to Christy, nor Christy to Elle. So they just continued to date. So not long after that awkward meeting, Billy and Christy, they just go on about living their lives, jet setting, doing this, that, and the other. And eventually, he asked her to marry him, and she said yes, of course. They get married, but it was low key. It was Christy's family, and I think one or two people from Billy's family was there, but it wasn't his mother and it wasn't his sister, who, technically was his first cousin, but I'll say sister. It wasn't either one of those. For some reason, I can remember it being a couple of band members who were there. They didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Then after they married, they took his boat and went sailing. But they came back to the hotel that I think the wedding was, and that's where they had their honeymoon. And it's thought that this is the night that they conceived their first child, who's known today by the name Alexa Ray. I think I mentioned in part one that he gave his daughter Ray as a middle name as a tribute to singer Ray Charles, who was one of his favorite singers. I believe between Ray Charles and Nat King Cole. Those were the ones that shaped Billy's musical ear in terms of rock and roll or pop music. I'll say pop music. Because he did all the classics, or the classical, like, who was that? His dad used to love Wagner. He liked Rachmaninoff and just a lot of Beethoven. Ooh, and what I did like about Billy Joel was the fact that he mentioned The Entertainer by Scott Joplin. He said the words, Scott Joplin. I know people who are not familiar with either one of these people I'm talking about, Billy or Scott Joplin. But that's a big deal because that's not somebody Scott Joplin is not a name you hear of nowadays. He seems to have been lost to the annals of time, but he was a diamond in the rough, that Scott was. So I was glad to hear him, almost as glad as I would be had he mentioned Stevie Wonder, which he has. But I guess since everybody is familiar with Stevie, yes, it's still a thrill to hear his name come from other artists. But that doggone Scott Joplin, I just love ragtime big band. I just love music. Okay, on to wherever I was. Oh, yeah. So they named the baby. She was born December 29th, 1985. And her name is Alexa Ray Joel. He tickled me. See, she was, Christy was in there having the baby. She was in labor for 14 hours before the baby was born. And he kept telling her, you need something for pain, but she kept refusing it. Oh, she just refused to get the epidural or whatever it is they put you under with. He was the one sick. He needed her to take it so that he could be He didn't know whether to pass out, throw up, do both at the same time. Where the doctor was like, look, because Billy kept going out of the room and coming back and going out and coming back. And the doctor told him, just hold on to the edge of the bed, the footboard, just hold on to it so you won't fall or whatever. And so when they had the baby, he went around like, I guess a lot of husbands. Because my husband did it too. He followed those people right out of the OR, around there to the nursery, so that he could watch the baby as the nurses cleaned her up and got her ready to present to them. So I don't know if it was the first picture they took together, but the one picture he describes, he said that he and Christy, neither one of them were used to handling babies, and then this was their first baby. So they took a picture of them holding little Alexa, and he said they were holding her like she was a baby pizza. And I keep closing my eyes trying to imagine what that must have looked like. But holding Alexa like she was a baby pizza. But he just doted on her. And for a few years or so, everything was fine. They were traveling around the world, Christy and Billy and the baby. But at some point when it was time for her to go to school, Christy anyway knew she wanted her to be in a stable place. She didn't want to just all over the country and stuff. And he talked about how growing up, whoever had, celebrities that had kids at the same time Alexa was growing, they used to all play together and have little play dates and parties, depending on, if you're in London and, I don't know, Keith Richards, I don't know, whoever that knew you were there, if they had kids that age, they would always reach out and invite you or you to them, and that's what it was. But somewhere around 4 or 5, they would play, but then it was time to go home and be, just a place you knew you could identify as home and stuff. So that's pretty much what they did, and this is where we are now. Unfortunately, I do believe we're about to come across them breaking up and going their separate ways. I think that's where we're going to be in the beginning of part 3. But as we end part 2, yes, everybody's happy, everybody's content, and all is right with everyone, the baby and the parents. So, music lovers, book connectors, once again, thank you all for those of you who are even bothering to watch my videos or stuff. I know I feel like I'm just talking to myself for the most part and recording it. But eventually, hopefully, all of my other subscribers will see some of this along the way. I know it's not the subscribers' fault. I know it's YouTube. I know this. But I tell you, it doesn't really give you much of a reason to keep pushing them out if they're not going to be seen. So I choose to believe that it's more or less YouTube, not my subscribers. So because I feel that way until I feel differently, subscribers, thank you all for being subscribed. I really can't be here without you. Visitors, feel free to join us over here. We'd love to have you, especially when you go on and you see how we engage with each other. And everyone, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Comment respectfully and subscribe, I should say. And by all means, make sure that you not only have your notification bells turned on, but you have them set to all. So whenever YouTube decides to, you will be notified each and every time I upload a video. So, in the meantime, music lovers and book connectors, remember this. As long as there are books and music around, there is always something to read and rock out to. And until we meet or read again and listen again, book connectors and music lovers, be safe out there. Have a wonderful work week. And until we rock out and read again, once again, I say to you, God bless. And bye for now.